Hey everybody, happy Friday. I hope you've had a good week, as always. Um, when I started making this video, at least planning for it yesterday, I was a lot more tentative about how I would have characterized this past week. Um, but uh, as of today, as of this morning, actual Friday, um, I'm really feeling good about the week. Um, Taking a certain amount of pride in actually getting some hard work done, solving some things, feeling like I'm not just spinning my wheels, uh, which is nice. Um, that actually is kind of exactly where I want to jump in on some of the progress that I've made here in terms of my uh, setup for the studio, but also I guess more specifically with the my strategy for amplification and for just playing guitar broadly. Um, I've talked about it a little bit before, and the idea is that I want to build an approach based upon the use of two amplify two amplifiers. Um, there's a number of different ways to describe that, biamping, stereo amping, but that's the whatever you term it, whatever the most accurate way to describe it is. Um, I'm I'm using two different pieces of equipment for different ranges of the kinds of sound characteristics and settings you would use as a guitar player. Um, and I thought this would be a relatively straightforward thing in terms of just once I decided what those pieces were going to be, what that complement of two amplifiers would look like, what the characteristics would be, how similar or contrasting they would be. Um, that would be the hard part. But I started to discover that there's a whole signal path issue uh, when it comes to taking one guitar signal, one monophonic signal, and then taking it to multiple paths, branching it out. To me, I hadn't thought about that kind of duplication being a problem, but there are certain hurdles that do come in that area that I've learned. Um, and I've been spending the last couple of weeks trying to break through that because, for example, when I would be trying to work on those things, some of the pieces of equipment that I've been using to make that routing possible, they were introducing problems that I were kind of subtle and hard to recognize at first. One of them was the introduction of noise. Um, but then the other piece of it actually has to do with just the basic kind of response of the instrument. Um, and it just doesn't feel the same at all anymore. Um, so unacceptable levels of like noise and then fundamental changes of characteristic. I'm not sure how much I said that overlapping over that last little bit, so just take that for what it is. Um, and yeah, it was kind of bumming me out trying to figure out exactly um, how I was going to be able to tap into these two pieces of gear without making any of the sacrifices. And and finally, over the last couple of days, I've got everything set up and working here. Um, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but now I've got the I've got the box that I need here that will do this exchange. It's really great. It covers both of those needs of mine to, not have like noise and crap added to the signal, like, like hum, um, and then also not to change the feel or the tone of the instrument. Basically, I wanted it to be as invisible as possible, and I am very, very happy with it. It's called the Orange, as in like the amplifier manufacturer, the renowned British maker, um, and it's called the Amp Detonator. So it's they describe it as a buffered AB slash Y box, which which means that it has two core functions. It can serve as a switch between two separate outputs, basically, so two separate amplifier paths, or it can the Y, which is basically doing both simultaneously. That's why they describe it in terms of the Y. Instead of just in either or, the Y is forking the signal to both of them, I guess. Maybe if it was my brain, I would have thought of it as like delta or something like that, but whatever. So AB Y box, and it's got some extra bells and whistles in there to address like prevent signal drop if you're going back and forth between them, to make sure that it's like got perfect continuity. And also, it's just got a little bit of padding and extra care to make sure that the signal that is getting to the amplifier is very rich and robust and not degraded, because this is going to be at the tail end of your effects boxes and stuff, which each one of those is, it introduces more things that the signal has to go through, so it does break down that signal a little bit. So the amp detonator box, I think that's what the detonation part is talking about. It helps out with that a little bit, and when I play back and forth on these amps, I did a little bit of A/B testing to see what it sounded like just going direct into the amplifier versus putting the AB box in there, and it doesn't stand in the way. It doesn't make me feel like that there's something that's reducing the responsiveness. It just feels like a nice, full, clear signal, and the back and forth juxtaposition of that when you're going back and forth, like I'm basically using it like as a distortion pedal almost. My Marshall over here, that's my distortion pedal. It's a very inefficient way to get a distortion pedal function. You can buy a distortion pedal, but it's not the same as that for a lot of reasons. So that's the distortion line, and then over here behind me is the twin reverb, and that's the clean amp, the basic amp, for most purposes. And it's seamless. I love it. So I had intended to try to use it last night, but I hadn't done my homework in advance and gotten a few things figured out with it, and the levels balanced in Pro Tools, which is the recording software that I use as a mixer. I mean, you see the window of it in the upper right hand corner, the upper right quadrant. I sat down and I spent some time getting things worked out, and now I'm super happy. This has been several weeks of culmination that I've been working on this. A few weeks ago, I think maybe it's been a month now, I did my first foray with this, where I kind of learned a lot. And like I think I've talked about in some other sessions, I had a good friend of mine that was listening in and gave me some feedback about the apparent signal balance and some noise that was happening, unwanted kind of extraneous noise that was coming in at certain points. So that was an added layer that took some time to manage from a sound engineering standpoint. But I've got that working in conjunction with the AB box now. And that's kind of what I most want to showcase today. I'm going to mess around with some other stuff as well. And I might, stop back here and breaks in between with some other comments about what's up with me, like maybe a bird update, something like that, after I do a little bit of a guitar session. So, thanks for checking in. I hope you're doing well, and hope you enjoy whatever's gonna happen next. Because I don't know, but I'm excited about it. Yeah, so as always, the quality of playing is not guaranteed at all when I'm involved. But in terms of the sound quality and like the characteristics of it, I felt like that was at least a reasonable demonstration of what I'm going for with some of the dynamic contrast of the two amplifiers and you know, some examples in there of what I was trying to describe in terms of the seamlessness going back and forth. I tried to do that from a musical standpoint in a few ways to create situations where I could, at moments, create a dynamic transition point out of what I was playing that would really kind of showcase how smooth the transition of the change was. So maybe you caught those and you could sort of tell when I was going back and forth between them. And, I'd be curious to hear if you had any thoughts about that, if it sounded relatively level to you through those changes, to my ears, they did relatively, but for me, it's a much more engaging playing experience, having that wider palette of sounds at my disposal at any moment. I wasn't really ever committed to too much of any one. There were maybe a few ideas that I listened back to this. I might say, oh, I should kind of create that as one of my sort of put it in my pocket as a stock riff to start putting more time into, something like that if it gets into my ear. But yeah, I enjoyed doing that. So thanks for hanging out and listening to the description of that, and if you check that out, thanks for hanging in and seeing what I'm doing with that. Now, what I want to do for a quick transition is I want to hop over on the drums and just play a groove for just a minute or two. It's just a little bit of a palate cleanser, a little bit of a reset, and then from there I'm going to decide exactly what I want to do next, if anything. it might be it for the day, but I'll probably at least come back and talk for a couple more minutes after that. So, yeah, groove time. Yeah. Well, that was rusty and pointless. uh, that was mostly for my benefit, more so than I can imagine for you all's. Um, I haven't been playing drums much this week, so I think that shows. Um, like I've talked about on here before, some of the things I struggle with here and need to continue to allocate some of my focus toward are things like ergonomic problems I have with the setup of my own equipment. Drums being the worst in that regard for me. Like I've said it multiple times about how um, it's easier for me to sort of navigate other people's kits. It seems like that know how to set their stuff up, and I almost enjoy playing, like, away as opposed to home when it comes to drum kits. And yeah, I found myself kind of just going for immediately what was convenient without really sitting down and spending time actually getting things oriented, so that when I travel across the kit, everything stays in the right place and stays comfortable with my feetsies, and so there are a couple of pretty egregious hiccups with the kick drum patterns that were happening in there as a consequence of having my foot at like a weird angle and just, dumb stuff that I'd like to, that should be easily remedyable, but I can't quite figure out for whatever reason. But anyway, yeah, and as I was listening to it, you probably saw at the beginning, I noticed that the kick drum microphone needed an adjustment. I saw that it had apparently been, knocked around, which I half remember doing when I stumble through here, trying to move cables and stuff. And, I'm already trapped in a web half the time with I've got the headphones and the guitar cable and then the extension and all the other lines in here. But yeah, the kick drum, the placement of the microphone changed in a notable kind of way, and it was sounding a little less dynamic to me, to be perfectly honest. Just it kind of sounded flat and glassy. It didn't have kind of the fat roundness that I believe that it had before. And I don't think this time that it would have been attributable to overplaying, like sinking in. That wasn't one of the things that the posture issues would have been contributing to, or causing, I guess. So I don't know. I don't personally grade myself great on that and the performance on that, and I see that I'm going to need to do a little bit of work adjusting up the drum kit. I said it in the last video that it's kind of silly to expect it to be in good shape without spending time working on it. But anyway, I'm just trying to, keep that muscle working and, frankly, challenge myself to do something that might just be embarrassing, which it kind of was for me, but whatever. It might be, modestly entertaining or whatever. Or at least you can laugh at it or feel better about yourself for it. I don't care. Well, I do, but I just, I'm not negatively affected by that, is all I mean to say. So I took a little break after I finished the drums there and tried to decide exactly what I wanted to do to round this out. And I did want to come back here and talk to you guys a little bit more about kind of what's coming up next, plans with what I'm going to be changing with my setup in here, and then do my kind of last musical set of the day. And I decided that what I want to do is basically continue with what I was discussing about the whole amplifier strategy for guitar, and how this has been, the first episode, musical component here. It had been today. That was, a biamping exercise demonstration, and my twin Vox amplifiers, they have been in the shop for a couple of weeks for a combination of issues, including one of them just needed some of its, original components were due for replacement, and stuff like that. And so anyway, those will be coming home in the, fingers crossed, in the coming days. And so I will, in the the time between now and next week, I'm going to be working to get those integrated into the setup here. And I foresee a lot of the stuff that I do next week being about the progress I've made getting those twin V125s into place. And so on that theme, I do want to say that my last piece for music is going to be another guitar session. Trying to be dynamic, going back and forth with the Fender and the Marshall. But yeah, this will be a kind of a contrast, between this kind of session and what I think it's going to be like next week, because in my mind, using these kind of twin amplifiers in this way, where one of them is going to be the clean amplifier, it doesn't have the distortion on it, the overdrive, tube saturation, whatever you want to call it. It's still going to be basically the same amplifier circuit on the A channel and in the overdrive channel. It's not like two completely different amplifier types that have different personalities. It's kind of going to be a clone, so it'll be like the amplifier and then another version of the amplifier, but just under a different set of circumstances. It's kind of like certain more modern amplifiers would be like, where you would just have a switch where you could do all of that inside of one amp. That's just a slightly more sophisticated kind of layout that they didn't quite do, until I believe it was in I don't know whether it was in the late 70s or the 80s that they started doing that. But the equipment that I've got mostly predates that kind of thing. And so the point is parity. It's going to be very similar. And that's kind of what I'm going for. And I'm really curious to see what that actually feels like. I've got the concepts. I'm hopefully maybe you're getting a little bit of a picture of the difference between how this is a biamping session where the two amplifiers are kind of notably different. They have their own characteristics. The next one is going to be the two versions of the same amplifier, but just with one, having different settings engaged. And so oh man. And if you knew how much I loved the sound of the amplifier, to be able to have that as the full range of the sound, oh man, I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be a big part of my artistic identity, my development, and I'm very excited to be working in this kind of capability now. I've stressed so much about whether I'm going to be able to pull it off and figuring out all of the different pieces of it, and now it's all kind of coming together. And the biggest piece of the equation, again, really being getting this amp detonator, the switcher box, into the mix here. So with that said, I want to close things out for this week's hosted session. I'm still trying to figure out what to call these. It feels podcast-esque. It's also, it's a video journal talking about just what's going on, for me on a weekly basis. And it's also kind of a little bit of a public service announcement for the studio and the recording services that I'm trying to avail of myself to others. I'm done wording right now. I'm going to go into nonverbal and the twang, twang, pluck, pluck stuff. So that said, thanks for tuning in, checking this out whenever you do have a chance to stop by. I hope that the pre-recorded format is a little bit more convenient for everybody. It is for me. I'm still trying to make sure that I am sticking to a schedule of having these things go live at 7:30 on Fridays, That's my time, 7:30 Central. Um, this, as of taping this right now, I'm not sure that that's going to be realistic, but I'm going to be close to it. It's definitely going up tonight. So whenever y'all do see this again, thanks so much for your support. Thanks for checking in, and be good. So here's a little bit more guitar for you. Bye.